And good morning everyone, welcome to the exciting new sound of Radio 1. With those words, 24-year-old Tony Blackburn launched Britain's first official pop station 50 years ago this weekend. With his trademark modesty, Blackburn spoke for only a few seconds before spinning the first record, Flowers in the Rain by The Move. It was a historic moment, official recognition of popular culture by the BBC, Britain's state-funded national broadcaster, which at the time had an official monopoly of the UK radio airwaves. Rather than try to impose discipline on its DJs, Blackburn credits the BBC for just asking them what they wanted and letting them get on with it. Adam Boulton, Radio 1 and its TV older sister Top of the Pops, which was effectively taken over by Radio 1 DJs, were much more than a BBC phenomenon. They had a significant role in establishing Britain as the driving force of the swinging 60s. Now, half a century later, they are a living record of the pop phenomenon. Yet, as Blackburn explained when I met him this week, it all came about pretty much by accident. The BBC and ITV struggled to keep up with the explosion of pop music in the early 1960s, but millions of teenagers and young people were desperate for the music of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and the rest. With airplay limited to a few minutes a day on the Light program, they turned to round-the-clock record playing on pirate radio stations. Video Tony Blackburn on Radio 1 at 50. Radio Luxembourg broadcast from across the channel, and pretty soon Radio Caroline and Radio London set up on ships closer to home, but outside territorial waters in the reach of British law. The new generation of disc jockeys who cut their teeth on the pirates included Blackburn, John Peel, Kenny Everett, Johnny Walker and Emperor Roscoe. Pretty soon, they got on the nerves of the UK authorities for taking audiences from the BBC, operating commercially beyond the grasp of the tax authorities, and, in the view of some campaigners, corrupting the morals of Britain's young people. Richard Curtis filmed The Boat That Rocked as an amusing take on the generational conflicts of the time. In 1967, the government passed the Marine Broadcasting Offences Act, which effectively banned the pirates. Image pirate radio stations like Radio Caroline drove the government to force the BBC to introduce pop music, but, as Blackburn points out, this did not bring about the establishment of commercial radio in the UK to compete with the BBC, as the investors backing the pirate ships had hoped. Instead, Harold Wilson's Labour government passed pop to the BBC. Rather than try to impose discipline on its DJs, Blackburn credits the BBC for just asking them what they wanted and letting them get on with it. He requested American-style jingles and turntables he could operate himself. And so wonderful Radio 1 was born. In the early days, programs had astonishingly large peak audiences of more than 20 million listeners, most of them on portable transistors radios. Commercial radio didn't start here until the early 1970s, by which time radios 1 and 2 were dominant. Today, Blackburn says there isn't really a record business. Kids don't listen to radio. They listen to Spotify. And most of them won't know how to tune a radio. Image Radio 1 lives on with DJs like Greg James presenting the station's big weekend in Hull, but Radio 1 lives on. And the audience that grew up with Blackburn has transferred with him to Radio 2, often still listening to the same music. This weekend is a celebration of a concentrated and powerful time in popular culture which won't be easily repeated. But Blackburn is never self-important. When I asked him what he thought 50 years of Radio 1 had achieved, he simply replied, fun for a lot of people. Sky Views is a series of comment pieces by Sky News editors and correspondents, published every morning. Previously on Sky Views, Sam Kiley, Puerto Rico doesn't matter to Donald Trump.